Welcome to the Founders First Fireside Chat for the month of June. And we have an exciting keynote speaker, the president and CEO of TriNet. We will get started in one moment. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the June edition of the Founders First Fireside Chat Leadership Series. We're excited to welcome our keynote speaker, Burton M. Goldfield, who's the president and CEO and board member of TriNet. And for tonight's discussion, I'm going to provide you with some background with regards to Burton. But before we get started, I'd like to first welcome and thank our partners, which would not have been possible without. Our host partner is National University. Our program partners are the Small Business Development Center and Founders First CDC, and our supporting bank partners are US Bank, Pacific Western Bank, Union Bank, and Citibank. We have been conducting these on a monthly basis to provide business owners, specifically small business owners, with access to experts that they otherwise would not get access to, understanding their journey with starting their business and growing their business. And this is a huge gem with tonight's speaker, who is the CEO and president of a prominent publicly traded organization, TriNet. And I am your host, Kim Folsom, the founder and chairperson of Founders First Capital Partners, which is the largest accelerator and advisory firm focused on funding and growing diverse founders. And I'm also the founder of Founders First CDC, a pre-funded growth accelerator and coaching platform for diverse founder-led small businesses. And we launched this platform after leveraging my 25 years as a serial entrepreneur. And through that journey, I had the benefit of meeting so many amazing leaders like our speaker tonight. And so I'm super excited to bring to you Mr. Burton Goldfield. And I'm going to tell you a bit about his background next. Mr. Burton M. Goldfield is the president, CEO, and board member of TriNet. And TriNet has solutions for over 17,000 small and medium businesses throughout the US. The transfer company into a leading, he has transformed TriNet into the leading cloud-based HR provider and professional employer organization. TriNet's net revenue has more than quadrupled under his tenure. Some information about Mr. Goldfield, in addition to his leadership at TriNet, he is the chairman of the board of Financial Force. He's a member of the board of trustees for the National Parks Conservative Association. He's a former board member of DHI Group, former CEO of Cantera Technologies. He's the former SVP of Worldwide Field Operations of Hyperion Solutions Corporation. Before that, he was the former VP of Worldwide Sales at IBM Corporation's Rational Software Division. He is a graduate with an MBA from Villanova in Philadelphia, as well as a BS from Syracuse University. And with that, I'd like to welcome Burton Goldfield to the Fireside Chat series. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Kim. You are amazing. I know we're going to have some fun here. And you have accomplished so much as well. So I'm glad to be here and look forward to chatting with you.
All right. Well, our discussion is going to be surrounding 5 specifically areas of winning strategies for building and growing innovative organizations that have valued the importance of innovation as well as an inclusive strategies. So first, we're going to talk about the importance of having a vision of success to building your business. Next, we're going to talk about how to leverage innovation to provide a unique solution to partner with small and medium businesses. We're also going to talk about his journey of taking TriNet public as a tech-enabled service-based solution. We're also going to talk about the impact of focusing on the ideal customer and building strategic relationships to accelerate growth of a company. And finally, we're going to talk about the importance of prioritizing diversity and inclusion as part of a success strategies and outcomes for major public corporations. So lots of really great topics that we're going to talk about. And I'm going to stop sharing so we can get a chance to see Burton's and his great background as well with regards to what some of the things he's got going on at TriNet. So welcome, Burton, to the program.
Thank you so much.
Well, great. And first, we're going to talk about some background information to get started. Can you tell us, how did you get started in this business?
So my background is born and raised in inner city Philadelphia, and I was always good in math and science. So in college, I ended up getting an engineering degree. I didn't go to school to get an engineering degree, but at Syracuse, I was working in one of the laboratories to earn money as a student. And another professor came in and started talking to the professor that was funding me. And he said, "We are going to start a biomedical engineering program here at Syracuse." And my professor looked over at me, said, "Hey, Burton, you should join this program." And he looked over at the other guy and he said, "Will you fund Burton?" And he goes, "Sure." And I said, "I am now a biomedical engineering major as long as you're paying." So that is how I became a biomedical engineer and got to graduate Syracuse with that degree. Unfortunately or fortunately, when I graduated, there was much more opportunity for somebody who knew how to program a computer. These were the early days of the mid 70s, than there was for people who were working on artificial hip joints, etc. In fact, I was working on the logic behind the first portable cardiac monitor, which was called the Halter monitor. When I say portable, it was about as big as a toaster, and now you wear it inside your watch and your Apple Watch or your Garmin watch. So things have come a long way. But I was always curious, and honestly, my journey is about saying yes to new opportunities, yes to being part of great teams, and ultimately that journey took me to Silicon Valley, where the innovation was going on. There wasn't many opportunities for a computer programmer in Philadelphia in the late 70s. I figured that if I was going to be a coal miner, I would go to West Virginia. And in my mind, if I was going to be a computer programmer, I needed to be in Silicon Valley. And that journey took me to Palo Alto, where I actually found a house by going to the Hewlett Packard garage on Addison. Now, many of the people listening probably say, "Hewlett Packard, that's not a great company." Well, when I was growing up, Bill and David were my heroes.
Right.
And the garage on the side of the house at Addison was a source of inspiration for me. And I ultimately found a house where I could walk over to Addison and get a little inspiration occasionally. But so that's how I got to California. I married an amazing woman who was willing to follow me to California and set down roots. And believe it or not, almost 28 years later, I'm still in the same home in the same location, and I take the same walks over to Addison.
That is an amazing story because you have had such an amazing journey. And one of the things that is, unique is generally folks, when they get to the certain points, they generally move. I think you and Warren Buffett, and I would throw myself in that boat as well, though I'm not running a publicly traded company, is the fact that you're still in the same home from then is quite a testament.
Well, thank you, but I've just been too busy to do anything else. And by the way, the 1,700 square feet suits me fine. It's very easy to keep clean.
Oh,
And it really is about how you're going to spend your time. And I've never believed acquiring things was a pleasurable aspect of life, being
Mhm.
part of great teams, working on hard problems, and just testing yourself is really what gets me excited. But the opportunity for me was pretty endless out here, and I found my world in Silicon Valley. And I've been part of just a few teams, but every one of them was wonderful. And I think that that is a big part of why I still wake up every morning and can't wait to get to work, because from the beginning I got involved with a wonderful group of people at Rational Software, and we were building some of the most advanced systems for the government at the time. And the company grew at that point from about 17 million to over a billion. And IBM ended up buying us, and for a period of time, I helped to transition to IBM. So I went from this little startup with a small group of people and spent some time at IBM in the transition. And as the story goes, they wanted me to move back to Armonk, New York. And as my wife said, if you're in software living in Palo Alto and you have to go to New York State to get a job in software, you probably aren't that good. So you have to find a new career. Now, I'm married 39 years, and that still rings true to this day. She was always pretty straightforward about the fact that the opportunity was here. So I ended up at a company called Hyperion, and Hyperion did budgeting and planning, and they ended up being bought by Oracle. So the big guys were snatching up the little guys, and I was looking for the opportunity to really do something impactful. There's absolutely nothing wrong with great companies like IBM and Oracle, but I always felt that I was an individual that wanted to be part of a small team that could make a difference. And I had a hard time in these bigger companies figuring out whether, if I was gone, would it really matter? And you and I both know, when you're a founder or you're in a small business, your impact is felt every single day. So ultimately, being part of startups and getting involved with new ideas and new technology has always been exciting to me. And my friends at Kleiner Perkins gave me my first CEO job in a startup called Katera, which did on-demand spend management. And ultimately, after some time at Katera, I was recruited to TriNet. And TriNet was very, very different because it was a tech-enabled business service. It was very localized to California, and they were looking for somebody who would help grow and evolve this company to the next level. So that's how I got involved with TriNet. We were a little less than $100 million, and now we're almost 5 billion. And the journey
Wow.
has been phenomenal, from about 300 employees to almost 3,000. And I still enjoy every single day, and the challenges change and grow. But I really believe that surrounding yourself with great people who are as passionate as you are about what you're trying to do is the secret to success. And between Hyperion and Rational and TriNet, I had far more success than any single person deserves.
Well, that is an amazing story. And thanks so much for sharing kind of your journey, your entrepreneurial journey prior to TriNet. But when you think about the fact that you took TriNet from 100 million to 5 billion, um, what was your vision for success like? How did you calibrate that? Uh,
So to just start out, TriNet provides HR and benefits and payroll for 17,000 small and medium businesses in the US. And my vision was to be able to build products and services that were highly verticalized in a market that had been very horizontal. Payroll is payroll is payroll, benefits are benefits. What I knew from the startup world I came from, the structure of helping with HR in a nonprofit was different than the structure of helping HR in a private equity or capital providing firm. And the same thing with biotech, and the same thing with software companies. Their needs, their desires, the way they want to interact, the type of benefits they want. So my vision was to take a large addressable market. We believe the addressable market for TriNet in the small and medium businesses, which is up to about 500 employees, is over 20 million. And to take that market and look for niches in the market where we could add unique value and cross the chasm and do something a little different than everybody else. There's a lot of great payroll solutions. There's a lot of great benefits out there, but delivering the total value was a challenge that I looked at. So having a model where we could truly partner with entrepreneurs. And by the way, I handpicked each of the 6 verticals that we deal in because of my own passion for those particular verticals. And I wanted to get to know as many of these entrepreneurs as possible, and not only help them with the payroll and the benefits and the HR, but anything else that I could help them with where I had direct relationships and contacts. So it kept me very involved, even at this point, in the core business, the core value proposition, and the relationships that we need to have with our customers. So it was always about using scale in service of the customers. A small company leveraging large scale benefits, medical benefits, workers' comp. It was all about every line of code that we were writing. I wanted to value to accrue to every one of the 17,000 WSEs or employees of the companies we serve. So that scale was the unique part, because you and I both know small companies do not have the same ability to leverage scale as a company like IBM or Oracle or the companies that had bought my prior organizations.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that. And when you look at TriNet's business, you guys have a leadership position for the market that you serve, given as you talked about, the nature of payroll benefits. What were some of the things that you did to carve out a leadership position, given those offerings?
A big part of it was, as I explained to you, I came from the technology world. So I did not come from the HR world. I wanted to use technology in service of these small businesses. And that was a different approach than many of the companies at the time. By leveraging the technology, we could actually give more personalized service. By leveraging the technology, we could deliver even more value at a cost that the customers could afford. And the second thing, which is finding great people to help on this mission. Technology is great, but having a team that is looking at these problems and has the same passion around the customers as you do is equally important, particularly as you grow, because you have less and less influence as the company gets bigger. We are in all 50 states. We had over 24 offices, and there is only so much time that I have to get around to all these locations. But by having passionate people within the organization, and those people have to also be compassionate, because the problems we deal with are very human problems. Human resources is just that. We deal with all types of issues, and certainly over the last 14 months, we've seen some very unique and challenging situations with the furloughs and the layoffs and everything that you know about that COVID brought to the economy, and particularly the small businesses. But how do you help companies navigate through it where they can continue to provide benefits for their employees, even if they're furloughed? How do you bring people back on in a controlled manner while you're watching your cash flow? What do you do about the overall benefits that you're providing these individuals? And we saw that our companies were pretty resilient, and I live through our clients. I live through their challenges, their successes, and I get to see some of the most amazing things you can possibly imagine. Everything from companies like ShotSpotter doing gunshot detection in cities around the world to prevent crime and prevent violence, to a company that is growing fish in a laboratory. The idea of having a fish equivalent in a laboratory without ever having the contamination or killing the fish, or diminishing the amount of fish in the water. So people are working on such great things, and I get a bird's eye view into every one of these companies.
Curious, how important was it for you? You mentioned that you have 6 particular subsegments that you focus on. How important is it to define that unique customer and form partnerships to accelerate your customer acquisition process?
It was very important to me because what I find, and in fact, I was just talking to my team about that today, is that when I got involved in this business, and I've been in it for 13 years, so it wasn't an overnight success story going from 100 million to almost 5 billion. It's taken me a while, and it's taken that commitment. But when I got in the business, I knew that at some point, if I was successful, there would be fierce competition. And what happens with competition is a lot of the value proposition gets commoditized, meaning there'll be a lot of players that can offer the base solution. So for me, I wanted to take the 20 million and find a particular set of verticals and industries that I was passionate about and go further and cross the chasm with the capabilities, so that if and when we were successful, I would have a very specific niche that was defensible, particularly against larger and bigger and mightier players, if you will. So I've always believed that when there's commoditization, you don't chase the commoditization down to lower pricing and basic capabilities. You add more value and you get paid for that incremental value. That was a lesson I learned at Hyperion. That was a lesson I learned at Rational. There was all types of other solutions for software development, but we had ClearCase and Rational Rose and products that really differentiated themselves in the marketplace, and the gold standard, if you will, and companies were willing to pay more for that. So my propensity is to go for specialization around a set of verticals or markets and let the rest of it go. Mm-hmm. If there is a 99 cent a check payroll offering, and people believe that they can run their company with it, I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. Do I want to offer a 99 cent payroll offering? No, I don't. No, so you don't. I do think you're hitting on an important point, is define your market. And by the way, if you and I were talking 10 years ago, I'd be telling you the same story. I think it's really important as a leader and a CEO to be very steady with the vision and the mission of the company, and do not change that unless there's a cataclysmic change in the market or the assumptions that you made to build the company.
Mm-hmm. That's very, very helpful advice. Continuing on this, as far as giving our listeners some insights about developing a strategic way to fuel growth by partnerships. Any advice that you might give to, many of the businesses we serve are companies that are, 6, 7, 8-figure businesses that have aspirations of either growing to 9, or they have aspirations to either rolling up with, larger. So what advice might you share about, activities or initiatives they can go to better have more productive partnerships that improve growth?
So it's a great question. And I look at the partnerships in two different ways. One is partnering with your customers, getting to know them and what they need and what they think about, and making sure that you follow them where they are going. And having a clear product vision, I believe product driven companies are very successful. Why? Because to me, the product is the complete delivered value to that customer. So, what else can you do with the trusted relationship you have with your customer? What else are they willing to pay for? Who else do they know that would be willing to be helped by you and the business that you've built? And really building out your network of referrals, your network of connections, your network of insight by truly getting to know the customers that you are serving. The other side of partnerships is other companies that you can work with so that combining your solutions, whether it's loosely coupled, whether it's through APIs, whether it's through bundling from a pricing standpoint, whether it's through joint marketing, whether it's through joint selling, so that you get a bigger reach. What I find with a lot of small companies is that they highly underestimate the cost of go to market. They highly underestimate how both timely and expensive it is to take your product and get it into the market. So the partnerships where you can team up with other companies that are non-competitive to get into a particular segment is really, really important, and it helps to reduce the go-to-market costs. And then finally, being part of associations and groups that add additional credibility. So for TriNet, it was critical because it's not as much of an economic sale as it is a trust sale. You are my HR department. I love my team. How will they be treated? I love their families. What kind of benefits will they have? If they have a problem, who will they call? Are we really getting the best choices out there? If there's an issue at work, will you really be there as my HR department? All of these are the kind of questions that a founder or a CEO or a CFO is going to ask us. If we are part of associations and we are attending events where they get to know us as people, it becomes much easier to start to discuss the overall features and benefits. So for my company, it's very much a trust sale. For somebody else's company, it may be more of a bundling with another company. So, hey, if I get A, that's good. If I get B, that's good. But if I get A and B bundled together with an API between them, that's even better. So in short, companies that I've worked with in the past, many of our own clients, where they've underestimated is the go-to-market and the cost of sales and the time it takes to bring on the net new customers.
Yeah. And some of what you're also sharing is that relates to innovation to reduce that time and cost associated with customer acquisition. Can you talk a bit about how TriNet leverages innovation to significantly differentiate your offering?
Wow, there's so much going on from an innovation in the go-to-market and the marketing side. It's far surpassed me, frankly, in terms of the amount of intelligence and the AI and capabilities that you can put in your website to really serve up the information that a prospect wants to see. People want answers immediately. It used to be you'd fill out a form, it would get you behind a firewall, somebody would call you back in a week or so. Today, if you don't have a chat bot and you can't give people answers immediately, they're probably going to go to another alternative. So the technology is in the knowledge around the individual who's searching your website and serving up if it's a biotech customer, when they get on to look at your website, biotech better be front and center, not clicking through 3 decision trees to get there. If they have a question and put it in the chat bot, you better answer them right away. If they have somebody say, please call me or I need more information, it used to be 7 days would be fine. Honestly, I'm looking for under 7 minutes these days. So the technology enablement of the website, of the incoming opportunities, the incoming questions and leads, people are looking for instantaneous answers. And what we find is a large percentage of our net new customers come in because they searched us out through the web. They asked questions or they found answers on the web that compelled them to go further. That's a warm prospect who is reaching out to you. It's far better than the old days of direct mail or spam marketing where the emails got in your email box and most of them got swiped away before you ever looked at them to begin with. So there is an inflection point for every business where the buyer is in a position to really learn about what you have to offer, and that occurs in a split second, and frankly it goes away very quickly. So my opinion of how we go to market and how we disseminate the information has changed radically over the years. Another part of it is an event that I know you're familiar with, which is People Force, where we will invest to bring in great speakers with unique knowledge so that people who have the common interest around building small and medium businesses, around issues associated with diversity, issues associated with the legal and regulatory aspects of a small business, can listen and learn and get real information. This is not a marketing pitch. As we were talking about earlier, having Eric Holder on was amazing. I hung on every word. We had speakers who had something to say. People have very little time. So if it isn't a unique perspective that has value for a certain class or set of individuals, they're not going to listen. So that's probably more than you want to know, but from a go-to-market standpoint, it is about the immediacy of the answers. It is about the relevancy of the data that you're serving up, and it is about the quality of the information that you are making available to this unique community that you have defined, only you can define, is your market.
Yes. And I'm going to come back to the inclusion discussion we had pre-launching the webinar, as well as People Force. But the one thing I want to, before that, I want to have you share with us, because you did something that is very, very unique. And when you think about, small business owners, to be able to get access to someone with your track record is amazing. So thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah.
But I would love to have you share with us your journey, because I can recall when I first met you, we were running TriNet as a private entity, taking them to go from private to a public entity. Can you share with us a Clip Note version of what that journey was like?
So the Cliff Note version is big vision. The Cliff Note version is I want to have an impact on the world around me. As you can see from my background here, these are TriNet customers. The pictures were taken by Annie Leibowitz. I get to have fun working with some of the best and brightest people in the world on both sides of the equation. And I had a vision that was very, very big, and I was able to find the funding and execute in a stepwise function to continue to get that funding to do something very, very big. That's my definition of success. That doesn't mean it's good or bad. one of the interesting, and I'll segue for a minute and then get back specifically to your question. One of the hardest questions I get is people say, well, should I take funding in my company when I'm mentoring people? And I just look at them and say, I don't know. What are you trying to accomplish? So I'm a big Stephen Covey fan. Begin with the end in mind. If
Yes.
you're trying to create an app and you want to make $750,000 and sell your app and go live in a desert island, I wouldn't take any funding. I'd work night and day, keep 100% of your company, and hopefully you'll be successful and meet your vision or your dream. If you're trying to cure cancer, it's not a matter of are you going to take funding? You're going to take funding 5, 10 different times.
Mhm.
So the question is who you should take funding from. So the whole concept for me was I want to do something impossibly big. And honestly, I've exceeded my own expectations. So if you would have told me we'd have a valuation of almost $5 billion, I would laugh at you at the time that I would be standing up at the New York Stock Exchange and ringing the bell at our IPO 7 years ago. I would have said, I don't believe you. I don't see that happening. But what I saw was a stepwise function where at each stage, whether it was private or public funding, I was able to sell the next phase of that vision, which was always, frankly, the same, was to have a meaningful impact on small and medium businesses with a unique product and work with a great group of people. So we've taken the people from about 300 to over 2,500. We've taken the revenue up commensurately, about 10x, and we're still going strong and having fun. But each of these experiences are honestly unimaginable as I'm on that journey. And in fact, last week I was back ringing the bell for a second time. So I get to ring it twice. We rang the closing bell last Wednesday, and it was just so much fun with a new group of people for my management team. We rang the closing bell, and I got to bang the gavel at a 105-year-old New York Stock Exchange. And to be up on that podium there and look down on the exchange was a little bit surreal back from the kid from Philly.
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, you never change as a human. You are who you are. And it's really as simple as surrounding myself with great people, having a big vision, and making sure that everybody believes as much as you do. And that means everybody who's working with your clients, everybody who's talking to your investors, everybody who is involved in building on that kernel. It's okay if people stop believing. It's a big world out there. They have to go and do something else. That doesn't mean they're wrong or you're wrong. It just means that having them as part of this team is probably not going to be successful for you or for them. So it's really no more than that. I feel very blessed every day. I've had the support of my wife and my family, and that's a big part of it too. I'll be married 40 years this year, and my wife's taken every step of the journey with me. And I, again, feel so blessed because how many of us really knew who they're marrying when you're 25 years old? And a lot of it is a matter of the situation, and you put yourself in the best situations you can.
Yeah, well, I can so relate on that particular topic because I'm pretty close to that anniversary myself. But thanks so much for sharing the importance of having that big vision and being able to communicate that and getting that engagement and buy-in support of your team. Now we're going to go back to the conversation we were having earlier about what you're doing with regards to your People Force initiative, especially with you launching it last year. You've been a very vocal advocate for diversity and inclusion strategies being integrated with key corporate strategies. And so, what methods would you advise diverse founder led businesses to build alliances with publicly traded company to produce better outcomes for both organizations?
Great question. Um, it's been a really difficult year and a half for the obvious reason of COVID, but there's a lot of other reasons and what's going on in our country and the world at large. And it's been important to me. Again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong for public companies, but it's been important to me to try to make a difference in the social fabric of what we are doing and impact not only our clients and make them successful, but the communities around those clients. And it's really it's been a challenge, and I'm learning along the way of how as a public company I can express perspectives and opinions, and they have to do, as you point out, with diversity and inclusion and giving back to the communities, and doing that in a way that is fair, if you will, to everybody involved in the company. So specifically addressing the employee side of this, it's really simple. Our clients are diverse and our employees should look like our clients. So for me, having a diverse workforce is really important to be able to relate and understand and generate ideas and perspectives similar to our client base. If the people who are calling on your clients, if the people who are answering the phone for this large number, and we have 330,000 people who are calling us and interacting with us with our current customer base, I always ask, are the people on the phone representative of the people who are answering the phone? And do we have that diversity in our organization when we go out and present our products and our services? It's also important I talk a lot about an enduring company. And to me, an enduring company is really a key part of being the CEO and the leader, because an enduring company means to me that we will be here in 10 years, in 20 years, in 50 years. Why does that matter so much? Because it affects who we hire, how much emphasis we put on the issues around diversity and inclusion, how much time we spend in training. If I was, and we can go back to my past, after Hyperion, after Rational Fast followed by Hyperion, everybody said, Burton, we want to hire you to pretty up our company at that time to sell to SAP and IBM and Oracle. You sell one company to IBM and one company to Oracle, and you can sell a company every 2 years. And I said, I have no desire to do that. I want to build enduring companies. He said, but you can make a lot of money. And I said, but that's not my motivation. It's building great teams. It's training teams. It's working on the culture. So as I look at this issue around culture, I look at the issue around diversity and inclusion. To me, I want the culture of the company, frankly, to be better than the world around me. I can't change a lot of what's going on in the world, but I can control to some degree what happens inside my own company. So it's a long way of saying it's a choice that companies make. And it needs to be, if you want to do it in an authentic way, it needs to be part of the soul of the company. And it needs to be done in service of the customers and the long-term impact that you will have as an organization. If you're selling the company tomorrow, it doesn't really matter. And that was one of the things I explained to the investors who wanted me to pretty up companies and put a .NET layer in there so I could sell it to Microsoft or use some of the IBM technology or SAP technology. None of this is wrong. I don't believe a company needs to take on that challenge. I do believe TriNet does, because I want us to be able to reflect the communities around us and make that a part of who TriNet is, to give ourselves a sense of belonging, a sense of identity, and the ability to ultimately do better for our customers.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that perspective. It was quite refreshing to participate, watch the, VOD version of the People Force event last year with Eric Holder speaking, and the subjects that were covered were much more than just, the surface level conversations
Yeah.
related to diversity and inclusion.
Well, thank you. We're doing it again this year. I'm excited about it, and we're going to try to do even better. And as you know, you and I talked about before we started this, it's not about a marketing skin because everybody sees through that. We're all sophisticated these days. It's whether there's real value and real people speaking to you about what you care about. And everybody is bombarded. So, back to how we try to differentiate ourselves, we're trying to be a little bit different. If that works, great. If not, the wonderful part about being a public company is you get the direct feedback. At the end
Mhm.
of the day, you have a lot of different constituents that you have to service. And part of being the CEO is to balance those constituents in a meaningful way where you're actually speaking to each and every one of them and you're delivering value to each and every one of them. Because at the end of the day, if you're leading the company, you are the band leader.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. Is I tell people going through their careers, take it slow. It's all good. Enjoy the experience because at the end of the day, none of us know how it's going to end up. But make sure you have defined who you want to be.
Right.
And you don't do these things because of your family or your friends or any of it. You do it because inside you have an internal drive, a sense of satisfaction, and hopefully some great vision that you can execute against and find some other crazy people who want to do it with you.
That's so key. So now we're going to take a little bit of a different tact and maybe with some of that perspective is if you were to meet the 21-year-old Burton Goldfield, what advice would you give him about his future?
Well, first and foremost, I would say it's going to be okay. It's going to be better than you could have ever dreamed of, and savor every moment. So I think first I would just say take a breath, look around, because and one of the things I've lost a lot of mentees over, they ask me, well, when did you know you wanted to be a CEO? When did you know you wanted to be a public CEO? And my answer is, I'm not sure I want to be. And I laugh because life isn't linear. My vision was around the delivered value to the client, not what role I would have,
Mhm.
not the title I would achieve. Not, I never in my life said I want to be a CEO. Never. I never in my life said I want to be a VP by the time I'm a certain age. And I do think people get hung up with that. But I believe in the adage that if you find a group of people that you have fun with, and again, that's a big if. I've debated this discussion with people for many years, how appreciative I am to fall in with a group of people on 4 different occasions that were phenomenal. My memories are amazing, and they let me be part of this journey. And I was always a team player. I was never a loner. I always loved being around people, and being around those people and finding a market, finding an opportunity made me successful. So the 21-year-old Burton would be about, it's all going to be fine. Enjoy what you're doing. And from there, you're going to be doing things that you absolutely never, ever dreamed about. And if you told me that I'd be in California amongst some of the best and the brightest. I'd be talking to you, Kim, today, somebody I respect just so much for your drive, your clarity, and your support of these businesses. I would have just laughed at you and said, huh? It wouldn't even have been a disbelief. It would just be, that just doesn't fit, because none of us know what tomorrow brings. And certainly none of us would know what happens in 40 some years. I'll be 66 this year. So 21-year-old Burton is a long time ago.
Wow. Well, you would never know that. Share with me, how do you use mentors and advisors to help support your personal and business objectives?
So first and foremost, I love to get perspectives from a lot of different people. And I have people that I respect just tremendously. But what I will say to you is that at the end of the day, the hardest part of being a founder or being a leader is that you have to make the decision. Honestly, the person I respected most in the world said, don't take the job at TriNet. You're going to get bored. You're a tech guy. You build software companies. You don't build tech-enabled business service companies. And I looked at the team that I was going to work with and I said, no, I have a good feeling I'm going to do this. So this was the person I had the most respect for. So at the end of the day, you have to make that ultimate decision, and you can't rely on others. As you evolve through your career, you need to take the input. So the subtext was that my background in technology and all that brought good and bad, meaning fast growing companies that either became unicorns or died, may or may not be suited for a tech enabled business service, which has a different evolution and a different culture, if you will. But I use mentors all the time. If some were been formal, some are informal. There's some people wandering around this earth that I'm in awe of. And when I say I'm in awe of them, I wouldn't want to be them, because they are too smart and they know too much about the future. I like to be surprised. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't want to be anybody but myself, but I do use a lot of perspectives. So formal and informal mentors are really important. I try to help as many people as I can. You'll always get a straight answer out of me, but at the end of the day, people who are starting and building and leading companies have to take all that input and then sit down alone and make the decision. And you can't be swayed very easily, because everybody will tell you what you did wrong. Everybody has a perspective as a Monday morning quarterback. And the cool part of doing this is that you get to make the decision on where you're going, and most importantly, what the vision will be.
Wow. Thanks so much for sharing that. A couple more questions. What do you do for fun?
Well, first and foremost, I go to work for fun. So
Aside from work.
Yeah, I do love what I do every day. And I'm hoping others, I can't wait to get to work in the morning. So I know there's a lot of controversy around working from home in the pandemic, but I love getting back to work, seeing people in the hallway, and being part of that community. Other than that, I spend a lot of time with my wife, the time I have left, and I have a grown son who's married, and family is very important to me. I do a lot of physical exercise, and I do it to reduce stress. So you will find me at the gym at least 3 days a week, and I'm out of the house by 4:50 a.m. every morning. So I have one superpower, and that is I don't need a lot of sleep. So I can spend a lot of time noodling on problems when other people are sleeping. But between exercise, family, and work, It takes up most of my time. I used to travel a lot. I don't do it as much anymore. Um, and I try to keep in touch. I still have my friends in Philly from kindergarten. So without you doing the math, that's over 60 years ago. We all had Mrs. Tetlow. Uh, she was a great kindergarten teacher, and we've all kept in touch. And we get together a couple times a year and just laugh, because if we met each other today, we wouldn't be friends, but we're the best of friends because we know each other inside out. So I'm a big fan of long friendships, long marriages, and spending a lot of time building companies. It's been 13 years at TriNet. I was at Rational Software for 12 and a half years. So I stick with problems and try to solve them. I think it goes back to my engineering. I love to find hard problems and figure them out.
Wow. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. And, I think we've shared before in the past conversation, my family's from Philadelphia as well. And, it's one of those things when you think about the neighborhoods and keeping in contact with friends. It's a great thing. Last question I have for you. What
Okay.
message would you like to leave for the audience that we may not have covered in our interview today?
Well, I just hope that they've gotten a tidbit or two that they can use on their journey. I appreciate what they're doing. There's a lot of problems to solve out there in the world. I am seeing tremendous innovation at TriNet among our 17,000 companies. And I hope that they take that journey and they make an impact on the world around us, because the world needs their ideas, needs their inspiration, and needs the passion of founders as they build their companies.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this and being so generous with your time. I know you're a super, super busy executive, so I really appreciate the insights that you've shared.
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful evening. And to the whole audience, thank you very much for listening.
All right. Well, thanks to Burton Goldfield for joining us and sharing with us your knowledge and wisdom. I want to invite you to come and visit Founders First CDC to learn more about our upcoming Business Essentials workshop. And with that, I'm going to wish everybody a great evening. And thanks again, Burton, for your insights. They're so appreciative. Well,
Bye now.
good night, everyone.